Welcome to Delighting in the Trinity with Michael Reeves, brought to you by Union. This podcast brings you teaching and preaching from our archives, and you can find more resources, audio, video and books at unionpublishing.org.
Right now, my heart is pounding with pride for our graduates. And the reason I feel such a physical sense of pride for them is not that they've graduated and they've got a degree, though well done in that. That's hard work. It's that right now what we're all about is we're about sending out martyrs, witnesses to Jesus Christ, who will lay down comfort, lay down ambition, maybe even lay down their lives, all out of love for Jesus Christ, that he might be lifted up in the world. And they know this. That's what they're here for. And so to see men and women who want to lay down their lives that Jesus might be lifted up, graduates, I salute you. I'm so proud, and my pride means nothing. But that love for Jesus Christ, that desire to see him extolled, to see his glory made known in all the earth, well, that desire will mean one day you will hear your Father's pride and thanks. And what I would love to look with you now is back in Jeremiah 2 that Stephen kindly read for us. If you could turn back to that. I'd like to really ask a simple question. Dear graduates, as you go out and face the daily life of living for Jesus, making him known, where are you going to refuel? Where are you going to go for fresh life? And I ask this because over the last couple of years or so, I have seen so many in ministry and Christian leadership either grow depleted or crash because they're living on the wrong thing. They're refueling themselves with the wrong thing. And in Jeremiah 2, there's a simple choice put before Israel. You can see it. I think verse 13 particularly sums it up. My people have committed two evils. They've forsaken me, the fountain of living waters. They've hewed out cisterns for themselves, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Ultimately, that's the choice in Jeremiah 2. Which will you go to? Will you drink from the fountain of living waters for life? Or will you find yourself some broken cistern and try to feed off something else? Whatever it is, the approval of others, comfort, alcohol, whatever it might be, an affair. What will you feed off? And so what I would like to do is help you to see why it is the case that the living God is a fountain of living waters and why all other alternatives are broken, cracked cisterns, so that you can grow in your conviction that every day there is one place to refuel. You know this, but I want you to deepen in your conviction for when it becomes so tempting to go somewhere else. There is one fountain. So, why is the living God a fountain of living waters? Well, that description of the Lord as a fountain actually is describing, it's getting close descriptively to his essential identity, which comes up if you flick over the page or scroll if you're on your phone. In chapter 3, Jeremiah goes on, he's still appealing to the people of Israel. And he said to them in chapter 2 that they've forsaken the fountain of living waters. And it's almost like a parallel verse in Jeremiah 3:19. I thought you would call me my father. That is his most essential identity. Father. This God eternally is a father loving his son, who has so loved his son that he sent his son into the world that we might be united with him and brought before him as children before the Father. And so that's why this God is eternally a fountain, because for a fountain to be a fountain, it must pour forth water. For God to be who he is, Father, he must beget the Son. He must give out. He must love. Love isn't a mood with him. If he did not love, he would not be Father. And therefore, because of who he is, his most fundamental identity, eternally, before he was even creator, he was Father, loving his Son. And that's why he's eternally a fountain of life. Because of where we are, we're allowed to get geeky for a little moment. And there are two Greek words that theologians like to use to describe this nature of God. The first Greek word is hypostasis. And for those friends and family who've not been studying Greek with your clever graduates, hypostasis sounds like a nasty skin condition. What it means is there are two parts to the word. Hypo means under, and stasis is to do with, you could almost hear it's to do with standing. So hypostasis is what stands underneath. It's a foundation. It's what's at the bottom. So, for example, in the Greek Old Testament, there's a moment in one of the Psalms where I sank to the miry depths where there was no hypostasis. There's nothing for me to put my feet on. There's nothing at the bottom. Or more importantly, in Hebrews 1, we read that the Son is the radiance of God's glory, the exact imprint of his hypostasis, of his being. Hypostasis is who you most essentially are. What's at the bottom of your identity? The second Greek word is ecstasis, from which we get the word ecstasy. You can hear the standing bit in it, the stasis in there. Ek means out of. So ecstasy is to be outside yourself. So when you're ecstatic, you're beside yourself with, well, happiness, anger. You can be ecstatically angry. You're ecstatically happy. You're beside yourself. Our God has his hypostasis, his being, in ecstasis, in going out from himself. That is his being. God's innermost identity eternally is a loving, life-giving, ecstatic, sharing, overflowing being. The triune God is an ecstatic God. And he will prove that ultimately in the supreme hour of his self-revelation, when the Son will give his life away. That's the identity of this God. That reveals the very heart of the Father, a God who gives, who shares. Now, all other gods, the gods of human religion, they're needy, they take, they're not giving, constantly demanding worship, service. The thing is, with this God, he needs nothing. He doesn't require anything from us because he's full, overflowing. Eternally has been. Needing nothing, his glory is a brimming over life. The Son who goes out from the Father is the bright radiance of his Father's glory. For that's what this God is like, full, fruitful, overflowing, a fountain. You know, there's a almost comic moment in Acts 19, which follows from Acts 17. Paul had said to the philosophers in Athens, Paul had said, it is not as though God needed anything. He does not need our service. And a couple of chapters later, Demetrius, the idol worker in Athens, says, if we stop making little silver idols of the goddess Artemis, and if people stop coming to her temple, then, he says, the divine majesty of Artemis will be impugned. Poor little Artemis. Right? For the crowd's cry in Ephesus, great is Artemis of the Ephesians. No, pathetic is Artemis of the Ephesians. Because she needs her minions to serve her. And if she doesn't have little people scurrying around for her, she's nothing. This God needs nothing. Dear graduates, this means he does not need your service. He does not need you. If that troubles you, and just question that, how much do you need your ministry, your service, your role, what you do? If it was stripped away from you right now, how crushed would you be? If you would be devastated, I suggest that ministry is an idol. He doesn't need your ministry. He's full. He does not depend on your fullness. You can do your ministry, your mission freely out of the fullness he shares with you. It does not depend on you. It flows from his fullness. And that, friends, is the fullness that underpins the very nature of the gospel, that our God is a fountain. God is not hungrily looking for some people that he can depend on. He doesn't need your goodness. He doesn't need your service. He's outgoing, fruitful, always has been. The Father is so full that he's had the whole fullness of deity dwell in his Son. And then he gives his Son, in whom is all that fullness, to us, so that from his fullness we might all receive grace upon grace. This is the God who's so full. He needs nothing. He gives and gives and gives again. You're not paying him back. He doesn't depend on you. This is the Trinitarian truth that underpins Jeremiah's image in verse 13, that the Lord is the fountain of living waters. Here is a God who is full, and he shares his fullness with us because he is a God for whom love of the other is central to his being. And therefore he is a God who, it's not merely when you've mucked up that he goes, all right, I'll forgive you this once, but very reluctantly. You unworthy sinner. He is a God who, we are told, delights in mercy, is anxious to be gracious, who loves to deal with us, not according to how we've done, but according to his name's sake. The one who is slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love.
Thank you for listening to Delighting in the Trinity. If this podcast has encouraged you and you would like to stay in touch with my ministry, then I would love to invite you to become a friend of Union. Sign up to invest in the growth of the church worldwide, and you'll receive a free book from Union, full access to video courses, ebooks, and audiobooks through our learning platform Union Grow, and get regular exclusive devotional material just for friends. You'll also have the chance to keep up with the latest news and updates from around the world. If you'd like to become a friend of Union, just follow the link in the podcast description now. Thank you so much, and I hope I can meet you in person soon at one of our friends' gatherings.
And this fullness is exactly what Jeremiah says sets the living God apart from idols and alternatives. If you look at verse 5. Now, when Jeremiah describes these false gods, these alternatives, he uses a really revealing word. So it's translated here in the ESV, went after worthlessness and became worthless. The Hebrew word is, for the Hebraists here, it's hevel. It's a word to do with emptiness or breath. It's a word that's used many times in Ecclesiastes. Vanity, vanity. Meaningless, meaningless. That's the word here. It's false gods are, the Lord is a fountain of living water, bursting with life. False gods are nothing. Little vapor. They are insubstantial, and that's why they cannot provide rain or protect their people. And so the people went far from me. They went after hevel, emptiness, and they became empty. They are empty and worthless, and they will always leave their followers empty and worthless. Now, it's easy when you think of sort of lumps of wood they might be worshipping in the ancient Near East. But of course, the reality is still the case for us. We can go to alternatives for life. Sin is the most obvious option. Why do we sin? Because it offers pleasure. We think it'll make us happy. We think, if I just do that, it'll be great. But think of what sin is. It is empty. Therefore, by definition, it can only offer a very passing pleasure. You'll feel the hook later. Sin, evil, all alternatives to God are ultimately empty. Empty as anything. By their very nature, they cannot truly provide or bring about good. If you look to an alternative to refuel at, it will wither you. Slowly or fast, it will wither you. And you'll become as empty as it. It is only the Lord God, glorious in his complete substantiality, his fullness, who can provide. You must know this, graduates. No idol can give you life. No idol can deliver. And because they're empty, no idol will ever win. They will all topple like Dagon before the ark. And you know, if you seek your fulfillment ultimately anywhere else than in the Lord, it will ultimately deplete you. And here's the thing. It's very easy in ministry. Those of you already serving actively in your church can know this. It's very easy to think, okay, I've got my Christian ministry and I'm shattered at the end on a Sunday, and I just want to retreat and watch a film, have some nice food, hang out with my friends, whatever it is that relaxes you. And you go, I just need to get away from some of that and relax. And there could be nothing sinful about that. You're just relaxing. But that thing can start becoming something you imagine is actually not just a place of recovery, but it gives you life. I need that wine. I need that escape time where the phone goes off. I need that affair. That's what gives me life. It doesn't have to start sinfully. But when you start finding something else is your source of life, you will become empty. And if that's begun in you already, you will feel it. You will feel something of the spiritual hollowness that they bring. You can recover by having time off, but there is only one fountain of living waters. If we try to satisfy ourselves anywhere else, we will find that they are broken cisterns that hold no water. And you will find, verse 19, it is evil and bitter to go to those broken cisterns. So why do you go to these other waters? The waters of the Nile, why do you go to them? They will not satisfy like the fountain of living waters. And you know, there's actually one other place that I think ministers of the gospel go to so easily as an alternative. You know what it is? Themselves. They think there's fullness in themselves. And it's so easy because in Christian ministry, people look at you as the one with all the answers. You're the respectable one, you're so capable, you seem to manage stuff, and you believe them. And you go, yeah, I am. In fact, now you mention it, I'm awesome. And over years of ministry, you can slowly develop this proud self-dependence, thinking, I'm full. I'm very competent. I can depend on myself. And what happens then is you start developing a chilliness, a lack of mercy towards others, an intolerance towards weakness, a superiority, a self-centeredness. And I bet even if you can't smell it, others can. And you know, a possible sign that you've started going down that road is that you find yourself constantly overburdened in ministry. And you find yourself constantly overburdened either because you keep taking on more because you think I'm a limitless being, or you feel the final responsibility too much. Buck stops with me. No, there is one place that is full, and it's not us. And if you're one who thinks yourself full, very aware of your ability, know this, God's fullness is not only what separates us from idols. It separates him from idols. It also separates him from creatures. You know, as soon as Adam is created, he's told, go and eat. I give you the plants of the field to eat, every green thing. So he's told right at the beginning that he is a needy creature who must take in to survive. And in fact, isn't it a strange thing? God created us to spend a third of our lives unconscious, and a good deal more of that stuffing our faces. Isn't that quite unproductive? It shows us we are not God. We are dependent. And unlike God, we need to keep in regular sustenance to keep going. Unlike all our dreams of our own importance, we've got to stop and rest. We can't keep controlling our world. And roughly every 24 hours, you need to hand over control, as one day you will for eternity. And workaholics often struggle with this. They burn the candles at both ends to maintain their God complex. And that's a path that leads to burnout, pride, despair. You know, it's an interesting word. I'm going to give you one more Hebrew word that is used to describe Adam. When Adam is created, God breathes into his nostrils the breath of life and he becomes a living, and it's sometimes translated soul. That word for soul is actually the word is also used for throat. Isn't that interesting? So, for instance, Isaiah 5, verse 14, Sheol opens wide it's this word nephesh. Is it soul or throat? Opening wide, it sounds like it's its throat. But it's the same word. Psalm 107, he satisfies the thirsty nephesh. Psalm 42, my nephesh, my soul or throat, thirsts, pants for you, O God. For our soul, the deepest reality of who we are, is like a thirsty throat. That's how we're created to be. We need to take in, we need to drink of the fountain of living waters. We are lacking. We go up and down in life. He is constantly full and overflowing. And nothing else in all reality will be like that. But yesterday, today, and forever, whatever your situation, he is a spring available of life, strength, joy. So drink, and drink deep from the river of delights, for he is the only fountain of life. He is a God so full, he shares his fullness with us. And you know, there is one other image that picks this up. Jesus uses the image of the vine to show how God shares his fullness with us. It is the image of the vine with the branches, that he makes us one with him so that what is his becomes ours. His fullness becomes ours. From his fullness we receive. And so the Father's love for the Son becomes the Father's love for us as we're in the Son. The Spirit of the Son courses through us. And here's what that means, dear graduates. You are not left on your own, trusting to your own resources to handle all that life throws at you. You are one with the all-sufficient vine. His power, his life are yours, for you are one with him. And he holds nothing back from the branches. He gives all his life to the branches, that they may bear fruit. Meaning, dear graduates, you have in Jesus Christ all that you need to face every situation he puts you in. Whatever your situation, in him you have everything you need. He is sufficient, and wherever you are, however hard your situation, however deep the valley, you are not cut off from his sufficiency if you abide in him, if you'll drink from the fountain. He is yours, and his fullness is constantly available, and is yours. And life can seem intolerably hard, even spiraling out of control. And yet you can say with Paul, I have learned in every situation to be content. I know how to be brought low. I know how to abound in every circumstance. I've learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. And you will say with Paul, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. What a fountain we have, who provides all his fullness. Let me pray for you now. I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named, that according to the riches of his glory he may grant you to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. Amen.
Thank you for listening to Delighting in the Trinity. We hope this podcast from Union is a blessing to you. Here is some exciting news about Friends of Union, those who regularly support the ministry of Michael Reeves. One generous donor has made a pledge to match the giving of new Friends of Union for 1 year. This means that from now until the end of 2025, any new Friends of Union who commit to giving monthly will have their giving effectively doubled, right up to the amount of $20,000. Would you consider signing up to become a Friend of Union today? Help us to provide gospel resources, raise leaders, and work for reformation in the church around the world. The impact of your giving will be doubled immediately. Visit uniontheology.org/friends to find out more. That's uniontheology.org/friends. Thank you.